So this webinar is Word, PDF, Canva, and Beyond, the Accessible Document Toolkit. I'm Devin Waugh, the Instruction Librarian for NC Live, and I have a fantastic co-presenter with me today.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a field experience student with NC Live focusing on digital accessibility. I'm finishing my MLIS at UNC Greensboro. I'm graduating next month, and I have a background working at academic libraries at UNC Chapel Hill. I'm excited to share what I've learned this semester with you and answer any questions.
Yeah, so here's just kind of what we want to cover today. Um, in this session, we will show and demonstrate the built-in accessibility checkers, tools to use within Microsoft Word, Adobe, and Canva. Um, and kind of thinking through like when to use Canva, when to use Microsoft Word, when you might want to use Adobe. And really understanding the critical components of making an accessible document, proper heading structure, using lists, tables, and some of those built-in features so that documents can be read easily by a screen reader or other assistive technology. We'll talk through ways to handle images, links, and color, and then accessible forms and flyers. So making sure how to check that a form is accessible as a PDF, and then ways to make sure that you're designing flyers and other materials in Canva so that they're accessible from the start. Um, why do we want to do this? So it's important to make documents accessible from the beginning because it saves the creator time. It also saves you time when you have to make updates later for version control purposes. So I really think that if you make a document accessible from the beginning, you don't have to go back and remediate. For our member libraries, it's important to think through with the new Title II changes, taking stock and auditing like how many PDFs do you have on your library's website? What are they for? And really, when you make them accessible from the start, it helps with navigation and comprehension because you're making it as clear and easy to use as possible for your users. And then it provides flexibility of use. So, thinking through accessible materials adapt well across devices, screen sizes, assistive technologies. They allow users to zoom in, change contrast, or use keyboard navigation without breaking the layout of them. And then flexible formats support a wide range of information seeking preferences. So when you design it accessible from the start, you're creating a better user experience as well. Yeah, and we will share the slides with you all. So some questions to ask yourself before creating a document is what is the purpose of it? Um, Is it a library card registration form that is going to live on your library's website? Um, is the purpose to collaborate? Is it a shared internal document? Is that something that you want to make in as a PDF in Adobe, or do you want it to be a Google Doc, or do you want it to be a document in Canva? Um, and thinking through like why are you making it in the beginning helps you figure out which tool you're going to use to make it. How frequently will I or others modify this document? So, um, one thing that we will share is oftentimes if you have multiple people modifying a document, it's good to create it in something like Microsoft Word instead of making it an Adobe PDF that you have to go back and fix later. Um, and there is the ability to password protect documents in Word. So that's something that we'll show as well. Another question to ask yourself is like, how does this document link to or exist in relationship with others? So, um, in taking stock of your library's website, is your library strategic plan up there? Is that document accessible? Is that connected to other benchmark documents that live on your library's website? And are these tools easy to use and download? Um, and be read effectively by a screen reader? Have they been run in the accessibility checker before you post it on your library's website? And then thinking through what do I know about the pros and cons of different document formats for different audiences? For example, users can convert size and font easily in Word, but a page in a Canvas course might be just as useful for a given purpose. So, as you're supporting for any of our academic librarians in the audience, thinking through how you're conveying the importance of accessibility to faculty, um, you know, are they providing an option for a Word document and then including a page for the syllabus as well? Really providing a lot of flexibility of use for students is really key. And then how am I expecting users to engage with my documents? Are they able to download that easily? And are you creating multiple means of representation? So, are there ways for, let's say, if you're sharing internal materials related to marketing? Are they going to be Google Docs? Are they going to be editable Canva files that everybody has access to? Um, and then are people able to easily convert it to a format that they need? Um, PDF is something that, our libraries often use, but it doesn't allow for the user then to download and edit themselves. Independently. So, an example of multiple means of representation, Transparent Language, which is one of our vendors, has a fantastic marketing materials page that, if you haven't used it before, they provide multiple options for downloading their social media graphics, and they're formatted to fit the specifications of each social media um, outlet. And so, I think this is a great example of how users are able to convert it to a format that they need um, very easily. And thinking through heading structure. So, headings do so much more than make your document look organized. They create a clear structure that helps all users quickly understand how the content is arranged. Think of headings as the outline or roadmap of your document. Um, and the key part is screen readers rely on these headings the same way sighted users rely on visual cues. So, someone using a screen reader can jump from one heading to the next to scan the document, just like we skim bold titles, section breaks, or bullet points when we're reading something long as well. So, if your headings are out of order or you're just using bolded font to indicate a section break, then instead of real heading styles, navigation becomes very confusing quickly for a screen reader or anybody really using assistive technology.
Another accessibility essential is alt text, which is short for alternative text. Think of alt text as a direct replacement for an image. It provides a text description of images so that all users, especially those who can't see the visual content, can understand the full content of your material. Screen readers read alt text aloud, giving users who are blind or have low vision the exact same information as a sighted user. So if your image is important, the alt text must be important too. You should make descriptions relevant and concise. For example, checkout books doesn't really describe the image here. So self-serve checkout stations located at the library entrance is way more informative. For images that are purely decorative, like a small border, a generic icon, or a spacer image, you can tell the screen reader to skip them by making sure there is nothing in the alt text field, including JPEG names or default text. This prevents the screen reader from announcing irrelevant, distracting information. Writing clear, descriptive alt text doesn't just improve accessibility, it also leads to stronger search engine visibility. Good alt text also helps search engines understand what your image is about, which is a win for everyone. If the image conveys information, the alt text must convey the same information. So for font choice and size have a massive impact on readability for everyone, especially for users with low vision or reading disabilities. When selecting a font, the standard recommendation is to use a sans serif font like Arial, Veranda, or Calibri. Sans serif fonts have a cleaner, simpler lines. This makes characters less ambiguous and easier to distinguish, which is vital for quick recognition. Avoid highly decorative, condensed, or script fonts and reserve italics for minimal use. The key is to select a typeface with a good X height, that's the relative height of the lowercase letters. sorry, and a clear separation between potentially confusing characters such as the number one, lowercase l, and uppercase I. The recommended minimum size for body text in any document is 12 points. However, for documents viewed primarily on screens, like PDFs or presentations, moving up to a minimum of 14 to 16 points is considered a better practice for comfortable reading across various devices. Always make sure your headings are appropriately larger than your body text to establish a clear hierarchy, but never rely on size alone to convey meaning. Your document structure must allow users to easily enlarge the text further using their browser or screen or reader settings without disrupting the layout. By adopting, okay, yes, no, that's fine. I basically said all that. It was just synthesizing the next part of it. Choose headings and lists instead of tables for layout or simple content organization. So you want to choose headings or lists instead of tables if you can. Tables can be very complex for screen readers to interpret, so use them only for presenting true data. When you use a table, don't cut and paste an image, but create it from scratch. Ensures that the structure is correct, and you need to clearly mark headers. You should also consider using a caption or preface to describe the table and keep it simple, avoiding merged or split cells. It's better to present two tables rather than complicated ones. We have a question. How would you balance accessibility with marketing purposes? How can you make a document such as a marketing flyer for a program attractive to patrons and still be easy to read? Well, we
Yeah.
are going to go over flyers later in
Hmm.
our presentation. So we'll move on and then address your question.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you,
Hmm.
Lauren. Um, for lists, okay, sorry, you can go back one. Thanks. For lists, unordered bulleted lists are perfect for group-related non-sequential items. Only use ordered numbered lists for sequential steps, a process, or instructions where order matters. All right, next. Chunking. I think so for chunking, we want to why is chunking important? It reduces cognitive load. So it makes the information easier to process and digest without overwhelming the user. It improves comprehension. Grouping related ideas helps users build a clear mental model of the content. It enhances scannability. Users can quickly find the specific information they need by scanning headings and lists. It allows screen reader users to navigate by headings. It helps low vision users track their place and avoid large, intimidating blocks of text. It aids memory and recall. It's easier to remember information when it's presented in small, logical, and distinct units. Chunking benefits users with ADHD, dyslexia, or short-term memory impairments by providing clear focus and non-overwhelming content. Universal design improves experience for mobile users, people in a hurry, and anyone who isn't a subject matter expert. How to do this? Avoid walls of text, be concise and clear, keep it simple, use ordered headings and lists, and keep paragraphs short. Aim for 1 to 3 sentences per paragraph. Each paragraph should focus on a single idea. For documents and papers with lots of text, use 1.5 or greater line spacing and tabs to indent your paragraphs. Don't crowd your content, and correct spacing is a powerful tool to reduce this visual clutter. All right. Next slide shows an example. So you can see here, there is an example of a shopping list. And the first one is really dense. And then, there's some chunking in the second one and more chunking in the third one. And you see below is an example of also a phone number. And you can see how chunking also helps here. So, which shopping list do you think is easier to read and remember? It's probably the last one. or at least it is for me.
All right, so we're going to switch gears and show how to check accessibility in tools that you already use. So within Microsoft Word, um, headings use the proper styles for clear structure, those built-in headings instead of manually changing font size or bolding things. This creates a meaningful structure that screen readers can navigate. With tables, as Andrea mentioned, use tables only for actual data, not for layout. I feel like in syllabi and in other documents, like the impulse is to create a table to organize things, like resist that impulse if you can. Add a header row and mark it as like a repeating header so that screen readers understand the column labels, and then keep table structures simple so no merge cells when possible. And then with lists, use words built in bulleted or numbered list tools instead of using a dash and listing out. I tend to do that with my notes where I write like a dash instead of using the bulleted feature. That try and break that habit because this ensures that each item is tagged correctly and read in order by assistive technology. And then with the accessibility checker, if you go to review, you can check accessibility. I find Word's accessibility checker very easy to understand um, and good for sharing with staff so that they use it in their own use of Microsoft Word. Words checker can flag missing alt text, low contrast, reading order issues, but it won't catch everything. So use it as a helper, but not as a replacement for reviewing the headings, descriptive link text, and overall clarity yourself. Um, Yeah, I highly recommend using the Microsoft Word Accessibility Checker. It's really great. They've done, we'll also share our LibGuide that we've made with some supporting materials. Microsoft has made a lot of short videos explaining this checker. They have a lot of documentation as well that I think is really useful.
So for this PDFs, so PDFs are problematic in some ways. They're not, they're essentially digital printer files, and historically they were designed to perfectly preserve the visual layout of a document across different systems, ensuring what you see is exactly what gets printed. While this is great for presentation, it makes accessibility harder. When you prioritize this static visual layout, the underlying digital structure, the tags, reading order, and hierarchy needed by screen readers is often broken, missing, or difficult to implement correctly. But Devin will be going over how to make a PDF more accessible in a bit too. But in general, it's for documents that need to be accessible and secure. Saving your original file as a protected Word or docx file is a much better approach. Why? Because in a program like Microsoft Word, you have complete control over those crucial accessibility features we've discussed. You can correctly apply labels, insert precise alt text, and create properly structured tables. Also, while many people assume PDFs are the most secure format, Microsoft Word actually offers stronger built-in security and permission controls that don't compromise the document's accessibility tags. You can protect the content from editing while still keeping the file fully structured and readable by assistive technology. So we have it showing on the screen is a way to do that. You go to review and then protect document, and then you can see how you can protect the document there. For most documents, you can work in a fully accessible source format like docx and only convert to PDF when absolutely necessary, remembering that conversion may require extra steps, which we'll go over. So for Canva, Canva has a built-in accessibility checker, which can be found under File, Accessibility, Check, Design Accessibility. This tool will check for color contrast, typography, and alt text. For color contrast, it checks text contrast and suggests suitable color changes. It's also important to print in color and in black and white to check your designs. Typography, it flags text that is too small, but it doesn't check for legibility. So it's still important to choose clear fonts of readable text size. Alt text It prompts you to add alternative text to images and elements. You can also mark things as decorative here. You can also provide descriptive alt text for meaningful images and graphics by right-clicking the image and selecting three dots, then alternative image. You can input your description or mark it as decorative. There are no numbered heading tags in Canva, just heading and subheading, which you can use through the add text feature. You probably would only use that in like a PowerPoint kind of situation, but Canva designs don't automatically translate visual headings into proper digital heading tags when you export. You must manually tag headings and reading order in a separate PDF editing tool like Adobe Acrobat Pro after export. Reading order. The order in which a screen reader reads content is based on the layer order in Canva. So that's under the position panel. Use the position panel to arrange elements so that the logical reading order is the order of the layers. It's better not to do a lot of layers on a design if you're sharing it. But if you do need to, then you need to make sure that the reading order is appropriate and starting from the bottom layer up. When you're exporting, ensure that you don't flatten the design. So that means like, on the export, when you're flat, it will have like a little check mark that you can check not to flatten the design or to flatten the design. You want to make sure it's not flattened so that alt text is preserved for screen readers. Alt text won't be included in your downloads of certain images and video formats. So PNG, MP4, AVI, but it's available for images and elements when shared via Canva's design share link and Canva presenter mode, as well as PDF, PPTX, and HTML. You want to make sure you're using meaningful file names. If sharing a flyer digitally, make sure to also include important information in a text format in your social media posts and emails. This is one of the best ways to ensure accessibility. So you have the image or the PDF that you're sharing. Make sure you also have that information typed out as well.
All right. And then in terms of comparing these tools, we wanted to kind of organize and help you the next time that you're choosing between one of these tools to think through like which one is each good for. So Word, I think this is great for creating documents that need to be shared, edited, or read digitally, especially reports, memos, handouts, guides, staff documentation, text-heavy materials. Um, I think for me, in preparing this, I realized how much, Google Docs has some accessibility features, but making certain things in Word can be really helpful, especially like agendas for meetings and notes and stuff like that. And using that accessibility checker, I found to be really useful. For Adobe, I think with Adobe, keep in mind like how necessary is it to be made as a PDF and in Adobe. So I think if it is a form that is, you know, part of your services for your library, a library card sign up form, something that's really essential to be made as a PDF file, then okay, yes, use Adobe. You can check reading order, you can add in tags for the form so that it's accessible. Um, and then if you're in the event of having to remediate a Adobe PDF will show how to do that. But really thinking through and taking stock of your library's website with these Title II changes coming up, how essential is this PDF to the library? Is this advertising or part of a service that we no longer offer? And really kind of doing that auditing, I think, is really important. Um, so that by April, when those Title II changes go into effect, the only PDFs that you have on your library's website are ones that are absolutely essential and have been made accessible or were designed accessible from the start. And then with Canva, use Canva for visual impact. So making flyers, social media graphics, posters, and then event announcements. And then just being careful that like if there's if you are starting to add a lot of text to a flyer in Canva, like Andrea said, making sure that when you share it in a newsletter, that move some of that text to the description of the newsletter or the email, um, rather than putting it all in the flyer in Canva. And then with social media graphics, like making them less text heavy if you can, and then including a lot more of that description in the description of the post is much better. You can add in kind of an alt text description for images in the description of a social media post as well. I'm thinking Instagram comes to mind. Um, and then for event announcements. So yeah, just making sure when you're flattening, you're not flattening it when you export it as a PDF. Um, and really just being careful about like if it's starting to be too much text, thinking through how you can use other tools like the emails or the description sections of a social media post to offload some of that content. So Andrea will demonstrate revising a flyer in Canva. So I'll have her share her screen.
Right. Can everyone see that? Um, so here I've selected a template just that I found on Canva, and I want to make it accessible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to go to Accessibility, and then I'm going to check the design accessibility here. And for typography, it doesn't say much, but for color contrast, it shows that these are not very legible for a lot of people. And so I can click on that and it has another color suggestion. So I can take those color suggestions or I can um, change it and then recheck. So I'm just going to go ahead and take these color suggestions. But if you wanted something that was pink, you could try to make a darker pink and then do that. So this says there's no issues remaining, but there are some issues still. So what I want to do here is this is not very legible. Like the E's are hard to read, so I'm going to change that. Um, and I want to use only two or three fonts on here. So I might just change it to one of the other fonts that I'm using already, which is Montserrat. So I'll just go ahead and type that to find it quicker. And I might make that bold so that we can see it better. And here, this is a huge block of text. So we want to create some chunking here. And we only want to give like information that is really important in this. So maybe we're saying that we're going to have this every month, but maybe it's on the first Saturday of every month. So we want to put that information front and center. First Saturday at 9 a.m. or something like that. And then here I would just probably put where it's located, Help County Library, and maybe like the maybe make this a little bit bigger and then maybe you might want to put the book of the month that you're reviewing or something like that to draw people in. But that's probably as much that as I would put, and you would want to put it like just like, you know, make sure that everything is spaced out, and make sure that everything is very legible for people. And I'm not sure when I did this before, for accessibility, I checked the design accessibility it was showing there's still here on this, all these images. So there, it wants me to put alternative text for all these images. And none of these images are really important to the book club. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on all of them. Sorry, there's so many images and it's taking forever. And I'm going to mark them as decorative. So there's no issues remaining for alt text and no issues at all for the design accessibility as far as the accessibility um, check is accessibility checker is says for Canva itself. Um, so this would be adequate to share. I could share it when I share it here. I want to download it. Then if I download it here as a PDF, I want to make sure I don't flatten this PDF. And this is where you will see the flatten PDF sign right here. So don't click that. And if it's already saved, unsave that. And then you can download and it should have the features you want if you did have some alternative text that you wanted to be shared. If I wanted to add, if I added text, if I wanted to add text here, I could add text box and then I can add heading and I can add a subheading. So that's how I would do that. Are there any other questions about this? I can't see the
We
chat.
have a question asking, I love working with Canva. Any suggestions for animation?
Oh, I've done some videos, but I haven't done a lot of animation. Um, I'd probably, if the animation, if you added animation and it's not, yeah, I'm not sure because if you add in, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Yeah, I guess it's like thinking through how is it being used. So like if the animation is part of a slide deck in Canva, making sure that there's some alt text or description of it in some form in description maybe in the presenter notes. Sorry. And then if it's going to be animation that's then shared on social media, thinking through in that image description or the post description, explaining the animation might be good as a best practice. But we'll have to check. We also have NC Live's in an alliance with several other library consortia around the country. And one of our partner consortia, Carly, has been doing a lot of webinars on accessibility. They just did one on accessible presentations. And so I would highly recommend, we've included those on a LibGuide that we prepared for accessibility. Um, but checking some of those out to see if they provide any guidance on that. I guess I would also say, like, there's a lot of documentation out there, knowing that libraries and other institutions are expected to meet these Title II guidelines. And so yeah, we can add a supporting document for that to the LibGuide. So the next thing that we're going to do is fix a form in Adobe. Lovely, lovely Adobe. So I am going to open that up real quick. Yeah. So do you have any suggestions for resources on how to draft effective alt text, trying to make sure it's doing the work we need and not being distracting? Um, yeah, there's a lot of, I think we've linked to a couple of supporting materials for that. And in that LibGuide that we prepared, and we'll add to this in the next week or so. So yeah, we can add in a little bit more for suggestions for writing good alt text, but there's a lot. Yeah, that a lot of support articles out there about writing good alt text. Yeah, and then April adding Microsoft does suggest alt text and does a decent job. Copilot does a good job too if you have access to that. Yeah, nice. Okay, so let's see. I'm in Acrobat, and this is an example of the kind of, with PDFs, these Title II guidelines are about what is public facing, um, what is up to date. So, thinking through like what are the PDFs on your website that patrons are going to be using frequently and downloading? Library card sign up form might be one of them. Um, I think ideally, if you have a library card sign up form on your website, if it's an online form, that's great. You can also make sure that that PDF is accessible if you have only if you have a PDF based form for this on your website. So looking in here, they have all these tools. Let me see. I am going to go to prepare for accessibility. So one thing that you can do is automatically add accessibility tags to this document so that it can be read by a screen reader or assistive technology. And then you can have it automatically tag form field so that um, it is clear. You can change the reading options on this side as well. So making sure that all the accessibility tags are in there. And then automatically tagging this document is already tagged. And so then what I'm going to do is check for accessibility. And it's showing me in the document logical reading order. So what I want to do is do a manual check of the reading order, and then color contrast needs a manual check because this is in black and white. I don't need to worry about color contrast. And then it allows me to go through and see, all right, what field descriptions do I need to fix? So here, what I'm going to do is it pulls up one of the form fields, and then let's see here what I can do. So yeah, it is with these form field descriptions. I know there's a way to edit this. But let me go back to here and see with these form fields. I think what I need to do is go to prepare a form, yeah, and then the form field description, and then a little bit more here. Oh, no. But as you can see how time consuming and tedious this is, as an example. Oh, there are just, as with all Adobe products, so many different options. So I'm going to go back and then prepare for accessibility. I'm going to open that accessibility report and show here are the things that it says I've passed. Document structure provides a logical reading order. Text language is specified. Tag content, all page content is tagged. Tab order is consistent with structure order. All form fields have descriptions. And And then when you click on these hyperlinks, Adobe has more documentation on these. Um, and then I'm going to go back and see if there's anything else. Ah, so appropriate nesting. Let's see where it is. Yes. So this little section at the bottom of the first page, um, this is where you would want to add in a heading here for please read before signing. So what I'm going to do is go to text and say here, it text. Yeah, so there we go. So I automatically tagged the PDF, and then one thing that I can do is check and see the reading order. Ah, so scary. Um, let's see. Right here, this is an H5. Let me see if I can take a look at the reading order of this document and make sure that it is nested properly. And this is where, in looking at this document, thinking through like, is every piece of this essential for a new patron for signing a new patron up for a library card? Is the section, this little table of I live inside city limits, outside city limits important? This is such a dense form. And so it's good to think through like, why are we doing it this way? And if there is a simpler way to represent some of this information. Um, because there's just so many nested little sections of it. Um, and potentially thinking through like, does it make sense to have the um, back section of this be part of the standard library card sign up, or do you want a separate one for children and having it be a little bit more spaced out and easier to read? This is where accessibility and usability kind of go hand in hand, and it's important to think through like, why are we organizing it in this way? Um, and so I'm going to show when I check the section for fix reading order, I can see exactly how things are going to be read. I can click on them and see here. And this whole section here, the whole bulk of this form is really a table. So that's where I think if you're making a form like this, potentially making it in Word first and making it accessible, and then going through um, and converting it to a PDF is just a better move. Um, and I can change this reading order. I should be able to fix that reading order. But again, this is really arduous. And there are some services that help with remediating PDFs that we can include in our LibGuide. Um, but I definitely recommend just taking a look at the ones that are most essential for patrons and thinking through how can they be remediated. So I also recommend just kind of running this through NVDA or a screen reader, um, so that you can check that reading order, and make sure it's clear. But yeah, these are the accessibility tools that are in Adobe. Here's how you check for them using that accessibility checker. Um, and you can use the accessibility setup assistant, um, and set up options for screen readers. But it is a real pain in the neck. So I'm going to stop my share and I'll show you all how to check for accessibility and revising an inaccessible Word document. So we're going to jump into Microsoft Word now. All right. I'll also, in our follow-up email, attach this example so that you can see my comments, and fix this document yourself. But one thing to start off with is looking at headings here. So what I would look at is, see here, styles, and then I would go to make this heading 1, section 1 as heading 2, and then section 2. And this is where you add in those headings using the style section. And then we've got 4 different sections. So I'm going to make sure to use that. And then let's see, lists. So this is where the dashed list here, I would change into a bulleted list or a numbered list. I would even kind of go so far as to get rid of those dashes and then use the preset formatting I have here. Thinking through color. So colored text can be inaccessible. For instance, yellow text is very hard to see and doesn't have enough contrast against the background. And then there are checkers online, for you to see if your text has enough contrast. The red and green text also will not appear as red and green for somebody who is colorblind. Often, you know, in documents, people will make text red and bold to indicate importance, but some users may not be able to see the bolding and color that well, or at all if they're using a screen reader to read the document aloud. So it's definitely something to consider with bolding and colored text is how you're conveying meaning. Um, this list here with these 2 columns, it might look okay, but if somebody tries to edit it or read it with a screen reader, they'll realize it is a total mess because the formatting is made with spaces instead of tabs. So a screen reader is going to read through every space. Um, and so here, what I would do to fix that, instead of using indenting in columns, um, what I'm going to do is, so irritating because especially anytime that you want to fix this list here in the columns, it becomes a whole pain to do that. So what I would do is, this is an example of working smarter and not harder. So I would add in the bulleted list here. I also would think through like, why do I need to use columns? And I can add in columns if I want to. Let's see. Layout, columns. But I also think use columns sparingly. We don't have to do it. Let's see. Uh, And then the section 2 with links. So descriptive link text. Um, read more here, learn more, register here. Think through, provide meaningful link text so that people know where the link is going to go. So the link that I have here, I would actually update to be, it's linking to NC State's accessibility page. Um, linking on NC State's accessibility hub. And then I would change the link here to be this text here so that it's actually meaningful about where to go. Um, the other example is showing the Pause for Pause event that NC State's vet med program provides as de-stressing before finals or around the semester. So I would say here, need a quick pause break, check out more information about the Pause for Pause program from NC State Vet Med about their adorable stress relief pets, and then insert the link with actual text that's describing what the page will be. Tables. So these are obviously used a lot in syllabi and by instructors. Um, adding in the heading column here is helpful. So let's see. I'm going to go to look at this little table icon. And then I would add in a heading here. With the second table, I would delete that altogether because it's not presenting any data. It is not useful. It's something that I would just take assignment and just delete it altogether. And so then here, what I would do is add in a subheading under styles, heading 3, and then people can read this a little bit more easily. And then the last section about adding alt text. So I would say here, if you are formatting this, let's see this lovely image, format picture. Let's see. Haha, picture format, alt text. All right, there we go. So I would say this is the Black Lab Retriever, Danson, which is my dog, is enjoying a summer afternoon in a field. There we go. It can also generate alt text for me, and it's saying a black dog standing in a grassy field. That works as well. I say approve, or I can mark it as decorative. So Word has made it really easy to add in alt text, check your document. So if you go to Home and then Review, you can click Check Accessibility, and it's showing me hard to read contrast. So the color for the headings or the links is difficult to read. I can go back and fix that. It's showing me, all right, you've got alt text, you're good to go. And then it's showing document structure, and everything else is looking good. So I stop my share, but that's kind of how I would tackle remediating a PDF is making sure that heading structure is there, running the accessibility checker, adding in your alt text, um, and really designing accessibly from the start kind of saves you so much time, as you can see. So I'm going to stop my share and we'll go back into our slides. And any questions about accessible document design? I will include the example in Accessible Doc to remediate so that you are welcome to use that again. For staff training purposes, feel free to use that. Yep. Um, because I think that's a really good exercise to try and do it yourself. Um, right. We've got a couple minutes left. So any questions for me or for Andrea? Screen reader recommendation. So I would recommend, um, I would use NVDA because that is a free screen reader to use. JAWS is, I think it costs. So from what I've been seeing with a lot of accessibility documentation from campuses, is that is the one to use to test. Um, it can be overwhelming to use to start, but then kind of practicing, you can kind of get a feel for checking with it later on. And then April asking any tips for dealing with flow charts or org charts. Yeah, so I would say you could tag the heading structure. Like if you're adding a heading tag to like department level so that it's read by starting off with the, whatever the headings are for the org chart document and then jumping from like access services to research and instruction to special collections or um, and then being able to read out people's names is good, or titles, the positions. So I would say if it's a PDF going into Adobe and tagging the reading order and making sure the reading order of it's clear, you should be good to go with dealing with like a flow chart or an org chart is just being able to make sure that reading order is clear. And then testing it with a screen reader later is what I would do. Yeah. Yeah, and then Andrea adding voiceover for Mac. That is definitely how a lot of people with who use assistive technology are using voiceover in their phones, on iPads, on laptops. And so um, if your library has an iPad or just get used to using VoiceOver on your phone so that if a patron needs help and support with using VoiceOver with library materials, you already know how to do it on your own. I think would be a good rule of thumb as well. Does VoiceOver help you text or keyboard navigation, or is it purely voice? Um, I would say it's purely voice. I don't think that
There
it
is
is it.
a text thing that it can pop
It
up.
is?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
you can do either. Yeah, you can do
Cool.
both. Yeah. But I mean, oh, to
Nice.
test keyboard navigation. Oh, sorry. I was thinking there was a text box too that pops up. There is a text box
Mhm.
that pops up for it to test keyboard navigation. Yeah, I've used it to test keyboard navigation. But the thing is, it has these different like menus and it goes under different things. So um, it can it can it can navigate the page in different ways. So it depends on your settings and
Mhm.
how you have it set up. And so there can be a learning curve for it. But they do have a great tutorial that I walked through, and I recommend it on your Mac. Yeah,
Nice.
no
All
problem.
right. All right. right. Just a couple of ways to get in touch with us. NC Live has a couple of social media accounts where we post updates about our resources, upcoming trainings, and then our listserv. So, our marketing and training newsletters go out at the beginning of each month. We include um, signups for anything that we're offering, webinars, any webinars our partner consortia are offering, we put on our training calendar. And then we also share self-paced learning. So crash course videos, tutorials, webinar recordings that you might have missed. We like to include on there any training guides that we're putting together or Moodle courses as well. Um, Anytime you have an issue with a resource, go to help@nclive.org. You can also call our help desk, and we provide support for our resources Monday through Friday. Um, One thing I will also recommend taking a look at is if you go to About and then Accessibility in terms of use, you can see our VPATs with our resources. So we make sure the accessibility of our resources, we address that with the vendors. We do audits. You can see the audit and then the status report and vendor response. And it's been a really great practice because we're able to see changes being implemented by vendors and then share that information with you all. Um, Info about closed captioning, and then Wave and Lighthouse accessibility tools, which we covered in our webinar last week on accessible websites. So with that, awesome. I'm so glad this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. We will have an accessibility water cooler discussion from noon to 1 on Wednesday, December 3rd. Feel free to share the recordings for these webinars with colleagues, staff, and then if people want to come in and ask questions about anything related to Title II changes, to um, ins and outs of your website, to accessible social media, we're happy to field those questions on December 3rd. But thank you all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your Thursday.